this come to a reality.
All right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Very, very important. And now quickly segueing into matters, Monetary Policy Committee, we saw the central bank rate being raised from 12.5% to 13%, being a 12-year high. It's quite interesting. 12-year high, 13%, you know. And the reason cited was to contain inflation, which is still an issue. And the second thing was the issue of currency, FX pressure. And the governor thinks raising the rates will be critical to manage these two elements of the economy, which are quite critical. Even before we take a look at what he said in regards to the shilling being stable, Ken, the ripple effect of raising this particular CBR rate, what do you think that is?
Well, I think the cost of credit will definitely go up because banks have already started increasing interest rates on people's loans. So that could lead to a slowdown in the economy in terms of just economic activity. But one also understands the currency was sliding and the central bank had to do something to stabilize the exchange rate. So it seems this was a necessary medication for the currency, but we hope that it's temporary, and hopefully from maybe the second half of this year, we can start seeing lower interest rates.
Definitely, very, very important. Before I come to you, Prof, talking of the shilling, the exchange rate actually against the dollar crossed the 160 shilling mark mid-January and has since stabilized just right around that figure, 160. Now, CBK governor says there is room to intervene if the volatility persists, but noted that raising the central bank rate and other interventions will continue to stabilize the shilling. Let's listen in.
Central Bank's policy on the exchange rate is to allow the exchange rate to be determined by market forces. However, we do intervene when we see that there is excessive volatility. And as I've indicated before, it is my view now that the exchange rate has overshot the equilibrium rate. So there could be scope for central bank to support the exchange rate going forward. However, having said that, we do believe that some of the actions that certainly the action that we have taken as the Monetary Policy Committee, the increasing of the CBR by 50 basis points should serve to strengthen the exchange rate.
All right, and one of the issues that he mentioned, that bite was quite long, Prof, was also the issue of, we are having inflows of dollars that will be quite critical. We have the IMF disbursement of $694 million. 2 months ago, we had Trade Development Bank also disburse close to $400 million. And it seems in the short run, that will sort of buffer and keep the shilling where it is. Just looking at it and the way the central bank has been handling the shilling, even comparing that to the previous regime, how do you assess this move?
Noah, there are a lot to read from the move because I would like to translate this to the ordinary person. Like when you say that you have increased the CBR rate to 13%, from 12.5% with the 50 basis points. Those in finance are very critical. A basis point is 1% of 1%, which means that change is always very sensitive. When you are increasing it, then you are saying that a few things are happening. You are saying that there is a lot of money in the economy, so you want to reduce it. So to an ordinary person, when we ask a question, is there a lot of money? A friend of mine told me that it is not very easy to get money within the economy that we are living in. And when you go to the supermarket, he's given change and is wondering whether that change is the enough change that he was supposed to get or not. So is there a lot of money circulating in the economy? Probably not. But then, always a contractionary kind of monetary policy is taken so that you can manage inflation, which is right because inflation is high. But we need to check where is this inflation, what are the main sources of this inflation, what are the areas that are actually making the consumer price index to go higher. If you give somebody money today, where will he spend most of that money? So that is what we need to diagnose. On a blanket note, increasing the CBR rate is to reduce the inflation, but it's also to slow down the economy. Is our economy already slowed down or we are slowing it down? That is another question. So that's one thing. Talking about the dollar easing in terms of our ceiling gaining, of course the reserves have increased rightly, as you have shared the figures there. We now have probably about 7.1 kind of billion dollars in our reserves. That is a good amount. That's good. But I think we should keep the focus and maintain the tempo in the areas that brings money to us, like diaspora. What are we doing to encourage diaspora remittances? What are we doing to encourage foreign exchange earners that we have, tourism and things like that? So I think the right direction to go is to ensure that we are improving on those areas so that we are able to have our currency firming up. But when you talk of these CBR measures, to me, these are actually very, very short term and they might not be the real thing. Okay. Yeah.
Very, very important. Ken, just noting this particular inflows and this term, compare with the responsibility that's coming up with this particular Eurobond maturing. By the look of things, first of all, we most likely will have that impact. But I was just looking at a certain report, I think released by FKF, if I'm not wrong, earlier on, and they were saying having a withdrawal of such amount, $2 billion from an economy, then we might have some sort of impact in that regard. So with these inflows, talk to me about the state of where we are in terms of managing our debt, our external debt, and even how the markets now, the international markets, are set to respond if at all Kenya is to go back to market.
I think very quickly, just to add on what Prof said, which I think was a powerful point that needs to be amplified, is the issue that we need to enrich the quality of our commentary. Indeed, Prof raises the issue of inflation, and there are two types of inflation. You have demand pull and you have cost push. And monetary policy tools work well when you're dealing with a demand pull, when there's too much money in the economy. But what we have right now is actually cost push. You know, Russia, Ukraine, events happening outside of Kenya. And whether they can be treated using monetary policy tools, I think it's a valid question that the CBK needs to engage in. But looking at our debt side, obviously the issue of Ivory Coast having an oversubscription, I think is positive news. The issue that the US Fed chairman expects interest rates to start coming down possibly later in this year. I think all those issues will mean that the cost of credit globally could start coming down, and markets will be able to tap into that. Obviously, Kenya still remains an attractive destination. So I think it's an issue of timing and the issue of global interest rates coming down. So that could help the country, even as they do a buyback, possibly there could be a window to do a reissue so that you don't feel the full impact of the dollars leaving the economy. So I think global markets could be lining up nicely and Kenya could be able to take advantage of those windows. All
right. Gentlemen, our time is up. Now, one thing I really appreciate about today is we've unlocked because we always discover something new on this show. We've unlocked our teacher mode. Yeah, of course, being guided by Prof himself. Prof, I like the way you've broken down things. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to create a segment within the show where we'll be explaining, demystifying this big, large economic context in a very simple manner. When you talk to us about 50 basis points, what does this mean? how does it impact? And that's the purpose of BizChat. We'll be able to do that more and more often. Ken, you're smiling as if you have a Japanese quote. Yeah, but I'm told time is up, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ken Gishinga. Thank you very much, Professor Olweni, for your time. And thank you very much for joining with us on Business Today from Monday till today. Thank you for your commitment. Really do appreciate. My name is Nogi Kimboy. I know you're going to have a great weekend. Up next, you have your KTN. Keep it. KTN News. All right.